Hey folks, it's Patriot Nurse. I want to share with you what I was told today at a barber shop and why it is we should pay attention to the wisdom of everyday people. So friends, I was at the barber shop today with my family, and it was interesting because the barber shop itself was pretty vacant. And for the middle of the day, on an otherwise busy day of the week, a lot of times barbershops are busy on Thursdays and Fridays as people getting ready to go out, or they're fixing to head out of town, do something for the weekend. Thursdays and Fridays are oftentimes quite busy, but it was quite barren in there. Not what I'm used to seeing. Usually the parking lot's full. Not today. Barber gets to talking, and he shares that business is down in the barbershop. And business being down, to further elaborate on this, he says that people are waiting longer in between haircuts. They're pushing it off multiple weeks longer than what they had previously. From his perspective, these are people from vast different strata. And this is not like the lower end barbershop. This is a fairly popular, not the cheapest place in town, not the most expensive, but middle of the road, a nice place to go to get your haircut. And from everything that he shared, people are hurting. Businesses are hurting. They don't have as much money. People are cutting where they possibly can. And when you come right down to it, people really don't have that many things they can cut anymore. I'm curious, in the past few years, what have you cut from your expenses to really try and make ends meet? Let me know in the comments below. But basically, from what he was sharing, people across the spectrum are really having to cut back. And this is not necessarily something that is an earth-shattering reality, but the lived reality on the street is something very much felt. And this is something that no amount of economic data and no amount of numbers on a scatter plot can really do justice to. This is how people live and experience life. This is what it's like for people to live and experience a downturn in the economy. And really, when COVID started and they started doing all the lockdowns and shutdowns, I don't know if y'all remember this, but I made a video. And in that video, I talked about stagflation being the reality. And stagflation effectively is where you've got this expansion in money supply, but you've got a contraction overall in the output of a nation. And that's what we're experiencing for various different reasons. But something that I've really got to think about is twofold how this is being impacted by the housing market and also the rise of artificial intelligence. I saw an article from Yahoo News earlier, effectively saying that this gentleman who was a software engineer earning about $150,000 a year had been reduced to running DoorDash and living in a trailer in order to live, in order to make ends meet, in order to have a roof over his head and food in his belly. Funny, because Biden, amongst other people, have told large swaths of people in jobs that we were assured would never come back to just learn to code. Well, check it out. People did learn to code, and now the code is replacing them. So when you look at the impact of artificial intelligence, the experience of people in this economy, of folks working harder and harder, but not making any headway, basically running a treadmill where someone has their finger on the incline button and the speed button, that's what people are experiencing right now. And this is more than just simply their jobs are being replaced or outsourced or globalized away. We have created, effectively, an entire nation, race, land of technological slaves that will work for pennies on the dollar, who are super highly educated, and that's effectively what artificial intelligence is. It will outcompete people who have previously had rather safe jobs. This is only going to compound the lived experience of folks like the barber I spoke to today, or the banker that I've spoken to recently. People saying, look, we're feeling it. We're feeling it because people ain't got money. They don't have time to come in. They're working too many jobs where they can't even schedule off to come and get a haircut during standard business hours. It's a real thing. When you consider also the housing market, this is something that we really need to pay attention to. Under the Biden administration during COVID, they had loan forbearance for a lot of people with student loan debt. Now, pay attention to me and stay with me on this, because when you consider the overall raise in the cost of a mortgage, and not just because of the expensiveness of a house, the cost of housing going up, but also the increase in interest rates going up, these mortgages that now Gen Zers, millennials, people and millennials now, I think the average or the median age to purchase a house for a first-time home buyer is now 38 years old. So those are millennials. And those millennials now are pushing everything off. And they're having more and more of their paycheck taken away because of the rise in cost of housing, but also because of these interest rates. So they were just making it, okay? Like they were just floating, just able to get their haircuts, just able maybe to make sure that they had, an ice cream visit for the kids, maybe every other week, something like that. Until the student loan forbearance ends. Because when you consider that student loan payments, I'm curious, like, do you have student loans? What are your payments? Student loan payments from people I know are anywhere between $500 to $750 a month. Well, if you had been just barely making your mortgage, that's anywhere between $2,500 to $3,500 or more a month. And now your forbearance or your pause in the payments required for your student loan debt is just going to stop. And now you're going to owe that extra $500 to $750 a month, and you're already working 2 jobs, side hustle, DoorDash, or maybe you're like this $150K a year former software engineer, just barely making it, and you have student loans. What's going to happen to people? Student loan debt doesn't somehow reset if you don't pay it. Like that will follow you the rest of your life. We are about to see shockwaves, in my opinion, going through the housing market because these prices have gone through the roof. You could argue what the locus point is and perhaps even the reason why this is so. But it's fair to say that inflation certainly has a role in it, that when you expand the money supply and you expand how fast that it's moving through the system, it's going to have its eventual terminal point somewhere in price discovery. Housing has been part of that. So whether it's that point or the point of several different groups of people suddenly realizing, wait a minute, I can't afford the payments on my Airbnb. I can't afford my student loans. I can't afford to pay for my children to have daycare so both me and my wife can work 2 jobs. Something eventually breaks. And that's what's called a depression, not a recession, a depression. And by the way, the housing market right now, which when you consider the importance of the housing market, the majority of the wealth that Americans have is tied up in their house, in the equity in their house, and in the overall assessed value of their houses. Many people have taken home equity lines of credit out on their houses that they had previously paid off and now perhaps are reassessed at a different value. What happens when they're now underwater on the value of that house? In some cases, like for instance in Tennessee, Tennessee's real estate has become abominably expensive for people. The East Tennessee real estate market is, depending on who you listen to, anywhere between 40 to 100% overvalue because so many people wanted to move. If you look at overall housing inventory, the amount of houses that are on the market right now, to my knowledge, from what I have seen, that inventory is either at or surpassing, in some cases, the level of inventory before the 2008 burst. So all these people saying, oh, prices are going to keep going up forever. You may have a 30-year overall linearized growth, but bubbles are a thing, and we are legit in a bubble. And when you consider, for instance, these hotter markets like Florida, like Texas, like Tennessee, what goes up will come down. The question is, how much is this going to come down? But when it comes down, this is the thing. On one hand, if you want to buy a house, this is what you've been praying for. But the flip side is, if you're holding value on a house, you're watching the value of your portfolio shrink commensurate to how much that price correction is. And make no mistake, there is going to be a price correction. For a lot of the boomers who are staying in their homes and a lot of my audience members, many of you have mortgages that are paid off or you're almost paid off. But one of the realities is a lot of boomers had planned on, for instance, being able to transition to a smaller home or perhaps to assisted living. That ain't happening for a lot of people. Can't afford it. Can't afford the smaller home now. Can't afford to downsize and take on an increase in payments, for instance, for what a mortgage would be in today's new dollars and in today's interest rates. So people are stuck. And not only that, the boomers are watching the potential for when this housing crisis reaches its maximum and this bubble bursts, their overall wealth get evaporated. So how do we prepare for this? Well, when you consider the fact that housing is expensive, people can barely afford to live, and we have created a race of terminators who are going to outcompete people in the job market, I don't think this is a sunny side to view. And it's hard to stay optimistic and be realistic, I think. But one thing I do know is everybody's always going to have to eat. People are either going to be getting sick or having babies, and you need healthcare for that. And people are always going to need high trust level professions, whether it is security forces, some type of physical security assurance. That's what people are going to need. So when you translate this into the prepping world, which is what many of us have known for all this time, the commodities associated with that are beans, bullets, and Band-Aids. And that is what I have tried to really devote my life to over the course of the past decade and some on, Here on the Patriot Nurse channel, we focus on preparedness with a lens toward the present, but a mind towards history. And that history is really what informs you. If you know the history and the patterns of history, it'll better suit you to be able to predict and prepare for the future. So friends, regardless of what the situation is economically, here's what I can guarantee you. You are always going to need to be able to take care of your family's medical needs at home. Healthcare has become so unaffordable for so many people that many families just can't pay for it. They've dropped health insurance, and not because they're irresponsible, but because they can't make it work. And in the United States, poverty is criminalized by Health and Human Services. So if your family is in poverty, sucks for you. We'll take them away. That's the CPS HHS way. So if you're a family and you're trying to make sure that your lights are on and that your kids' medical bills are covered, then you've got to start making that cost-benefit analysis. And a lot of people have dropped health insurance, which then begets the reality of you have to be in that care position. So if you're a grandparent and you have children who are struggling financially, or you have children who are just making ends meet, you might really want to consider educating yourself in the care of people. And this is something I've talked about before, but a lot of folks, for instance, who are older or who have some type of like the physical limitations, they often ask me the question, well, what value am I to a group? Well, this is what I can guarantee you. If you've got your mind and you're willing to learn, you are a problem-solving value for any group that you're in, whether it's your family, extended family, or any type of mutual defense group that you would be a part of. And to that reason, you need to know how to care for people's medical needs. I've got 2 courses online to help you with that if you're interested. You do get the free videos here, of course, on YouTube. Make sure, by the way, that you're subscribed and click the bell button to keep getting these free videos to you. But the 4-hour and 7-hour courses that I offer really are a great way to help round out your preparedness protocol. You want to be in a position where you don't have to go asking and needing people for help, particularly if you can't afford it. With my 4-hour course, if you take that course and it saves you 1 trip to the doctor, it paid for itself. So really, over the course of your life, if it saves you 2 trips to the doctor, now you're at a profit for taking my class. So I know, friends, that oftentimes we speak about history on this channel, but we're living history right now. Have you ever considered that? Our ancestors, they were living the history that we reference now as a bygone fact. We are living through the next iteration of history. The question is, how are we going to take care of the people that God has put in our lives? How are we going to be good stewards of our resources? And over and over again, it comes back to be prepared, to be able to feed yourself, to be able to defend yourself, and to be able to care for people's health. If you've got that, friends, you are wealthy indeed. I hope the video was a blessing to y'all. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you are subscribed and share it with one person who you know would be encouraged by it. Friends, on our website, thepatriotnurse.com, we have opportunities to learn with the online classes, but also we have products that I have curated specifically to be able to help meet your needs. I have a grab-and-go kit, the Patriot Nurse grab-and-go kit, which we have just a few of them left before we haven't had to resupply yet and pass on those cost increases that we're looking at potentially from tariffs and all this other stuff. So we're holding the price steady right now until they're gone, and when they're gone, we'll have to re-eval. So if you want the price stable the way it is, go ahead and get it now. So we have the grab-and-go kits. We also have herbal supplies, not only the capsules, but we also have bulk herbs and a large supply stash. And we got an email actually the other day through the website. Sweet lady was like, I had no idea it was going to be this big. It is a lot. Like, we're not talking like just a neat little tiny bag with the starter stash. We're talking something ginormous that you may need 2 college hunks to move for you. Hope the video was a blessing to y'all. Have a wonderful weekend. We know how this ends, friends. We know that our Lord is sovereign. He sits on the throne. And if we are faithful and obedient to him, he's got our backs. May the Lord bless and keep you all. For now, it's Patriot Nurse signing off, and I'll see y'all later. Mwah.